School sinister scandal. In Clovis, California, back in 2012, something happened at Miramonte Elementary School, and the scandal was so disturbing that when the truth finally came out, the entire school staff was fired. That's right, every single one. Even the janitors were looking around like, bro, what did we do? Meet Mark Burnt, a 61-year-old third-grade teacher who looked like the human embodiment of a dad joke. He was the kind of guy who wears khaki pants that are just a little too high and gives off strong, I live with 20 cats and they're my best friends vibes. But behind that mild-mannered appearance was one of the most horrifying predators to ever set foot in a classroom. For over 30 years, Burnt taught kids their ABCs, their multiplication tables, and, oh yeah, secretly turned his classroom into a personal horror show. Turns out he wasn't just an elementary school teacher, he was also running a one-man nightmare factory. Now, most teachers bring lunch to school, maybe a coffee, but Burnt brought a jar of his own semen. Yeah, you heard that right. And as if that wasn't the biggest red flag in history, he'd used it for tasting games where he'd blindfold students, pour it into their mouths, and make them guess what it was. Like some kind of demented Hell's Kitchen challenge that nobody signed up for. And that wasn't all. To make sure he had souvenirs from his crimes, he'd tape the kids' mouths shut with blue painter's tape, blindfold them, and take pictures, smiling next to them like he wasn't committing a crime against humanity. And because he apparently thought he was untouchable, he took those film rolls to a CVS to get developed. Lucky for humanity, the CVS employee wasn't a deranged lunatic, so when they saw photos of gagged and blindfolded children, they immediately called the LAPD. That's when Burnt's sick little house of cards came crashing down. When police raided his home, they found hundreds of these photos, along with more jars of his special ingredient. And if you thought that was bad, when they searched his classroom, they found ropes and blindfolds everywhere. Just to be sure he wouldn't talk his way out of this, the cops started interviewing students, and wouldn't you know, dozens came forward revealing abuse that had been going on for months. Now, you'd think at this point the school would be like, oh my god, how did we not see this? Well, they didn't see it because they turned a blind eye to it. Turns out, there had been complaints about Burnt for years, decades even, and nothing happened because everyone thought, not Mr. Burnt, he's such a great teacher. Yeah, great at being a predator maybe. But once the news broke, it was a tsunami of horror stories. More students came forward and, surprise, surprise, another teacher, Martin Springer, was arrested for fondling students. Turned out these creeps were running Miramonte Elementary like their own personal hunting ground. The media was everywhere. The school board was probably Googling how fast can we erase a school from existence, but since they couldn't disappear, their million-dollar solution was to fire everyone. That's right. In February 2012, the entire staff of Miramonte Elementary, teachers, administrators, cafeteria workers, even the guy who refills the vending machines, was removed and replaced. They took one bad apple spoils the bunch to a whole new level and Control-Alt-Deleted the entire school. As for Burnt, he was arrested and charged with 23 counts of bad conduct involving at least 23 children, all between the ages of 6 and 10. And in 2013, he took a plea deal knowing there was literally no way to talk his way out of this because when you're caught with a literal scrapbook of your crimes, there's not much of a defense. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and just like that, the creepiest elementary school teacher in American history was finally locked up. Teacher who put hubby's sperm in cupcakes. Let's rewind to 2019 in Livingston Parish, Louisiana, where Cynthia Perkins was known as a middle school teacher at Westside Junior High School. On the outside, she was living what seemed like a normal life. She was a junior high school English teacher, shaping young minds by day, and every day she'd bake her students cupcakes. How sweet, right? Her husband, named Dennis Perkins, was a SWAT team commander with the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. Talk about a power couple. One educates the youth and the other protects the community. What could go wrong? Well, turns out Cynthia wasn't just whipping up cupcakes, she was also adding a little personal touch, and I don't mean love. Apparently, every single cupcake she gave her students contained her husband's freaking semen! Yup! She mixed sperm into the cupcake batter. I mean, we've all had a bad school lunch, but this takes cafeteria trauma to a whole new level. Oh, and the husband was aware of what she was doing. In fact, he willingly provided the material every day for her. But that's just the icing on this very disgusting cake. Cynthia and Dennis were also accused of filming and possessing child porn. It's like every single charge they could have gotten, they went ahead and checked it off like a criminal bingo card. Honestly, this is one of those cases that makes you question everything, including why you ever accepted baked goods from a stranger. However, in the blink of an eye, their time was up like a timer on the cake oven. Authorities received a tip that something fishy other than bake sales was going on at the Perkins home. They bounced in, and when they searched, they found explicit images of children and videos of the couple being very inappropriate with little children. Imagine being the cop who had to open that laptop. That's generational trauma. The police arrested the modern-day Bonnie and Clyde and took their asses straight to court. Cynthia resigned from the school, and the police force partially kicked Dennis out of the department and compound. Fast forward to 2022, Cynthia Perkins took a plea deal by turning against her husband and conveniently blaming him and the devil for all her atrocities. Apparently, she filed for divorce the moment they were both arrested. She later retracted her statement and took a little responsibility for some of the crimes. However, she still maintained her stance that her husband was the main culprit and she was just an innocent bystander who was forced to join in. Well, I guess it helped because after she sold out her husband, 68 other charges against her were dropped, so she was sentenced to 41 years in prison with no chance of parole for 40. Translation, she's not getting out anytime soon. As for Dennis, well, he's a goose with a noose around his neck. The crazy man still insists he didn't do anything wrong and keeps pleading not guilty in court. He is currently facing over 150 charges and the possibility of life without parole. My guy really went for a high score in the crime department. Spying on students gone wrong. So back in 2010, the Lower Merion School District in Pennsylvania was having a serious mental breakdown about what their students were up to in their spare time, which was honestly none of their business, but I guess controlling their every move in school wasn't enough already. So one day, the principal and school management came up with this genius idea. Their plan was to basically give out laptops with spyware that they could remotely activate without the owner's knowledge. In other words, they gave the students free laptops, then would monitor their pictures, videos, and internet history through the spyware. And of course, who wouldn't love a free laptop? Now this is where things get even creepier, because if you were a troublemaker who caused problems in class, all the principal had to do was switch on your laptop's camera and watch you till they got something they could use as grounds for expulsion. It was like having a snitch in your bedroom. This is exactly what happened to Blake Robbins, who was a big troublemaker in school. Eventually, Blake was called to the principal's office and assured of taking drugs. Blake, who was seriously confused, had no idea what they were on about because he had never popped anything in his life. As evidence, the principal whipped up the image of Blake popping small, round, whitish substances into his mouth in his own room. Blake, on the other hand, was surprised to find fresh, crispy images of himself sitting in his room eating what turned out to be some Mike and Ike candies. Yes, the school mistook a sugar rush for a drug bust. Well, Blake went home, told his parents, and just like that, everything started to unravel. His family filed a lawsuit, and soon it became a class action as more parents started to become aware of what was happening. The school was charged with invasion of privacy and infliction of mental trauma on little children. When the principal was asked why he thought watching kids was smart, the man had the gall to say that the spyware was installed in case anyone stole the laptop. They didn't even ask you for one in the first place. Eventually, the school district settled the lawsuit, agreeing to pay $175,000 to Blake Robbins, $10,000 to another affected student, and $425,000 in attorney fees. Additionally, their insurance covered $1.2 million in costs associated with the suits. That's a hefty price to pay for playing Big Brother. Feeling spooked? Well, you should be. Every time you browse, sip coffee shop Wi-Fi, or check your email, your data's practically stripping for hackers, nosy ISPs, and sleazy advertisers. Worse, your ISP sees everything you do online. Yep, all of it. But don't sweat it. Private Internet Access, PIA VPN, is your online invisibility cloak. It encrypts your connection and masks your ISP like a mob witness in hiding, leaving hackers, snoops, government censors, and your ISP clueless. Plus, it smashes geo-restrictions, unlocking global streaming goodies. This VPN is literally a game changer because it has servers in 91 countries and literally all 50 states. Plus, it works with all major streaming platforms, so it doesn't even matter what you want to watch. Most VPNs cap your devices, but PIA VPN says no to limits. One subscription secures them all. Phone, laptop, tablet, even grandma's ancient PC. All platforms, unlimited protection, and it's available for all platforms. All! We're talking Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and many more. Best part? Snag PIA VPN for a wild 83% off. Just $2.03 per month. Plus 4 free months. Cheaper than coffee. Better for your future. Still love being spied on? You've got a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 support to bail you out. Go to piavpn.com/theevaluator or click on the link in the description below. Evil hazing. If there's one thing Americans love more than a bald eagle wrapped in the stars and stripes while holding a cheeseburger, it's football. This sport isn't just a game, it's a way of life. In Texas, it's practically a religion, and in Eula High School, the locker room was its sacred temple. And as a ritual to join any religion, you definitely had to go through an initiation process they called hazing. This is what led a group of 5 high school football players to turn their locker room into the worst escape room imaginable for one new unlucky teammate. And well, they didn't do the harmless pranks like fill his shoes with shaving cream or locking him in a supply closet for 5 minutes. Instead, these boys tackled their teammate to the ground and did things that were neither fun, normal, nor remotely legal. They used a bottle of air freshener to literally abuse the poor boy. These boys pinned him down, opened his butt, and started spraying air freshener juice up it. How do you even think of something like this? This was straight up assault. Now, you might be thinking, oh, boys will be boys, right? Wrong! Turns out boys will be felons when their antics cross the line into criminal territory. After the assault, the victim was left horrified and utterly helpless in the locker room, which is where the coach found him pants down. He was quickly rushed to the hospital where doctors ascertained that his rectum had been busted open with an inanimate object. They had to even perform surgery to get rid of everything that was left behind during the brutal assault. Well, it didn't take long for the police to get involved, and soon arrests were made. In fact, the details of everything that actually happened was too disturbing to be publicly released. And when even the police refused to spill the details, you know it's bad. However, the names of the ringleaders who carried out this atrocity were released to the public, and it was Paxton Rock, Jonathan Romer, and Randall Rose. They were staring down a sentence of 2 to 20 years behind bars. That's not just a few missing games. That's missing your entire 20s. The teacher who stole students' identities. In 2017, a teacher in Florida did something so crazy that even hackers and identity thieves would take a seat and take notes from her. She had been stealing students' personal information for years and opening credit cards in their names. So, Carolyn Peoples, a substitute teacher in Lake County, Florida, decided that grading papers and dealing with loud teenagers wasn't paying enough. Instead of, getting a side hustle like tutoring, she went for a much bolder approach. She stole her students' personal information and used it to open fake credit card accounts. Now, we're not talking swiping lunch money or small stuff like that. This lady went full-on criminal mastermind, or at least tried to. She got students' social security numbers and birth dates from school records, then she used that info to apply for credit cards in their names, and then went on a shopping spree racking up thousands of dollars in debt, all while still showing up to school like nothing was happening. Eventually, the students started to notice that something was very, very wrong with their accounts. Some were even using as much as $10,000. Turns out being a broke high school student with a negative credit score at 16 is a little suspicious. To be honest, this was really one of the dumbest crimes ever, because what did she even think was going to happen? Once the authorities started investigating, it didn't take long to connect the dots. Students reported fraudulent accounts in their names. The school checked its records and found that Carolyn had accessed their personal information. Police arrested her at school, probably while she was still teaching a class on ethics and responsibility. And just like that, her career went from substitute teacher to full-time criminal.